So hi, welcome to End Credit Reviews, and this is Tyler from End Credit Reviews.
And Steven from Steven Lawson Studios again.
Yes, even though it's this type of video where it's kind of after the credits where I don't really edit the audio too much, I decided to do a top 10 or actually a 10 list video. I haven't done one like this in a long time, especially with Steven. I think last time we did it was my top 10 movies I regret seeing in theaters, if you remember that one, and
I
I
do.
think it was like, oh man, we forgot to talk about Iron Man 3
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. And I remember on Facebook, you're like, oh, I would love to give my 2 cents on that one as well.
Yeah.
But don't worry, I'm going to try to make sure that we talk about the 10 ones on this list.
Mhm.
So, of course, when it comes to not just making movies, but anything in general, there are things that we kind of plan out or we script out, but then at a certain point in production, they kind of get, I guess, deleted or left on the cutting room floor because of various reasons. And I feel like most deleted scenes are pretty justifiable and they really do, like, they kind of dodge a bullet sometimes. However, there are some deleted scenes where I'm like, why did they cut that out? Now, for this list, I'm not going like number 10 through number 1. I'm going to go by 10 deleted scenes. I'm going to go in chronological order with the oldest movie on the list and work my way to the most current movie. In addition, I'm disincluding movies like Batman vs. Superman Uncut or the extended Lord of the Rings movies because those are like, official, cuts of films that were
Versions.
released by the studio. I mean, there's also like fan cuts, of course, but those don't count.
He's not placing a value of like this is the 10th one I this isn't the
Mhm.
10th most
Mhm.
one I wanted. He's
Yeah.
saying that these are all fairly equal. That
Yeah, that's like a 10 list. Like, it's like 10 deleted scenes
Mhm.
and that sort of thing.
There
There's
isn't a
that's,
hierarchy.
yeah, that's like that's a big difference between a top 10 and a 10 list.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, so for my first pick, well, actually, before I begin, I'll basically state that what was the deleted scene and where was it from,
Sure.
briefly describe what the deleted scene was, why it was cut, and why I personally feel like or felt like it should have been kept in.
Mhm.
Alright, so for my first pick is the spider pit sequence from the original King Kong from 1933. Now, yes, deleted scenes go back all the way to the old days of movies from the 30s.
That's right.
Now, during the scene in the original King Kong, I guess, tosses these guys into this chasm. However, in this deleted scene, it showed that some of those guys somehow survive the fall, and thus they get attacked by monsters in the pit. And according to Willis O'Brien, who did the stop motion effects for this movie, who also, by the way, went on to train Ray Harryhausen in stop motion and that sort of thing, said that this was his best work and that sort of deal. However, there was an urban myth about the reason why they cut the scene out was because, oh, audiences thought it was too scary. But the actual real reason behind it was that the studio, especially the producers, thought it slowed the movie down too much, and thus was cut, and sadly is kind of forever lost through time. Now, I felt like the scene should have been kept in because it was pretty cool. We got to see more cool stop motion stuff, and there's some kind of scary stuff in it. I love how Peter Jackson and his effects company not only like recreated the spider pit sequence on the extras of King Kong, they used the kind of black and white cameras as well as the stop motion kind of effects for its time to make it authentic.
Mhm.
In addition, Peter Jackson included the spider pit sequence in his remake of King Kong from 2005, which was pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. That is one that what was in the 2005 version of King Kong, and it was a very cool scene. And the fact that it was cut out from the original 1935 version of King Kong, um,
Well, 33.
or 33, excuse me, it that's definitely one that I think there's a good point to having it in there because it overall added a lot. I think the one exception you were pointing out to me was there was like a it's terrible I'm drawing a blank. I used to be a big dinosaur nerd, but there's something kind of like a triceratops.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That kind of just appears and then isn't in the next shot. And I think you make a good point that probably, I mean, for the continuity, wasn't, the best to have in there. But everything else, the fact that it inspired another scene in other iterations of King Kong, I think there's definitely a strong argument for that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so for my second pick is the extended poison apple making scene from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, there were several other deleted scenes in this movie that only made it to the hand-drawn stages, like the bedroom argument scene where Grumpy and Doc get into a fist fight, and also we see this musical soup sequence where the Seven Dwarfs are having soup that Snow White prepared, and they're kind of having this kind of musical number. However, the only deleted scene that actually made it to the coloring stages and the inking stages, and also it made its way to the premiere of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, was the extended poison apple making scene. Now in this scene we see the evil queen in her pillar woman disguise pretty much showing how she made the poison apple, and is kind of rhyming, and we see the skulls coming out of the cauldron that she's making it, and it was pretty cool. Now, I recently read in the book called The Fairest One of All, which is a making of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it's a really great book. It briefly mentioned this scene, and I think the reason why it was cut was that one of the directors in the movie noticed that there was a kind of a technical problem or error, and they felt like we should reshoot the scene. But because they hadn't made any money off the movie yet, they figured, well, maybe we should just cut the scene out. Maybe it'd just be better. And I felt like they should have kept this in because it was kind of cool, and I felt like it would have made a better transition shot than what was shown in the movie.
Yeah, I swear, I don't know what version it was that I saw, but there was one version before I saw the scene and understood the fact that this was deleted. I swear I saw a version where that scene with the skulls coming up did it did appear, and I'm trying to remember what that was because it was some sort of VHS copy that we had. But yeah, I clearly remember that, and if that was taken out, I think that was a good shot. It doesn't add a whole lot,
Yeah, it was pretty brief.
Like the King Kong one. This is an example of kind of just, oh, that's a cool shot. That was the case. So it didn't ultimately take out too much from it, but I agree that, it would have been nice. I'm all for leaving nice-looking shots in movies, so.
Yeah, definitely. So for my third pick is from the first Star Wars movie, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. In this scene, we see them briefly at where the, leaders of the Death Star are pretty much in this meeting, and it's an extended scene where we see, I guess, a mention of the Emperor, where they don't mention him by name, who is, Emperor Palpatine. And I think the probably reason why they cut the scene out, I don't think it was necessarily explained why, but I think the reason why was that there was a lot of production problems already, and it was a pretty expensive movie, and at the time they weren't so sure if they were even going to get a sequel in the first place. Mm-hmm. So it maybe kind of made sense why they cut this out, but I wish they would have kept this in because it would be like, oh, the Emperor kind of foreshadowing and kind of a little bit more, bickering with the certain individual characters. And I'm surprised with all the, newer versions of Star Wars that have been made, all the, special editions. I'm surprised this one is not included.
Yeah, I agree. I'd seen this scene again online somewhere that was probably of some version of some extended cut. But I agree. This is a scene that does add an interesting dynamic and some foreshadowing to a character to come in the original context of the original trilogy. And that would have been nice to have in there. It does add a little bit of dimension to the scene, and it kind of picks up right where naturally the scene did begin in other cuts. I don't think, however, the version of the scene I saw at least, it doesn't have the James Earl Jones voiceover. Mm-hmm. And that should have been put over because otherwise David. It's like, I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Well, that was David Prowse, the guy who physically played Darth Vader.
Right.
He kind of had like a Scottish or Irish accent going on. Tear the ship apart. I want the passengers. I want them alive. It's kind of interesting, but, George Lucas never intended to have him as the voice of Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. And that it was like, we just want your physical thing. I think there was a Family Guy skit where they show J. Earl Jones or James Earl Jones auditioned as Darth Vader, and he's like really fat, and like
His fat rolls are coming out of the suit.
and they're like, we just want you as the voice.
Yep. The truth in that. It kind of reminds me of how the voice of Elmo is like a 400-pound black guy.
And wasn't he like accused of some kind of Me Too crap
Probably.
before that happened?
That I admit I don't know, but it just shows that you never know the voices. They can just be completely not what you'd expect.
Yeah, remember that meme of Elmo on that one show, like talk show with that one news guy, and it's like Elmo knew.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I do remember that.
Yeah, right. So for my fourth pick is the scene where Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese argue in The Terminator. Now, there is a deleted scene in The Terminator where pretty much Sarah Connor looks through a phone book and she sees that Cyberdyne Systems, who will create Skynet and the Terminators, she sees that, hey, they're nearby, maybe we should go there and like blow it up. And he's like, I don't know, that's not part of my mission, that might like compromise too much of the timeline. And they get into a bit of a scuffle, and they kind of tumble in some like nearby, forest, grassy area. And then Kyle Reese kind of breaks down crying because he sees how beautiful everything is compared to the stark dystopian reality he comes from in the future. And I felt like this would have added a lot more depth and character to him, and more of a contrast between him as a human being the hero of the movie compared to the antagonist, the villain, who's a Terminator, who's like this soulless machine that obviously doesn't feel anything, but he does. Now, I'm trying to remember why this scene was cut. Probably because for pacing reasons, in a way. But again, I just felt like it should have been left in, because I felt like it would have developed Kyle Reese's character more. And I feel like he's probably the most underrated character in the Terminator franchise, I gotta say.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I definitely can see your argument for that. Maybe just out of context of seeing this scene and not having it in the context of the rest of the first Terminator, because it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. In fact, a lot of the movies on this list are some of my favorite movies of all time.
Right. Yeah, but for some reason it didn't strike me as like incredibly important. Mentioning the whole Cyberdyne aspect and the fact that it gives Kyle's character some depth. Those are definitely good things. But to me, this so far, at least of my understanding of the context, and again, this could largely be due to the fact that it's been a while since I've seen the first Terminator, but this to me feels a little bit like the one that I don't agree with so much. Like, it's kind of just, it's whatever. So.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, so for my fifth pick is the extended dancing scene from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, there is about a half hour's worth of deleted scenes and alternate scenes from this movie. There is a deleted scene where we see Dracula and Mina are dancing in this dark room with a bunch of candles, and then they kind of like dance off screen, and the lights kind of brighten up a bit, and we see we're inside Dracula's castle, and we see, Keanu Reeves' character as Jonathan Hawker trying to run away from Dracula's brides and him trying to escape Dracula's castle. And then they, showed to the lights dimming again, and we see Dracula and Mina dancing into frame. Now, I don't know why this scene was cut, probably for timing and pacing issues, but I think a still image from this deleted scene was shown on the back of the DVD, I guess, for the promotional stuff. And I wish they would have kept this in, because it was a cool shot. It was pretty visually impressive. There were a lot of like practical effects and visual stuff that they did in this movie with camera tricks, and I felt like it should have been kept in because it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. This seems overall, I think, as another example similar to what was it? Probably
the poison apple scene.
Yeah, the poison apple scene of like it kind of is just a shot that looks good and adds a little spice to the shot that we already kind of got in two separate shots. But I do agree the way that it kind of juxtaposes the dancing with the brides of Dracula coming towards him and him repelling them with the cross while he can. I think that was effective, and that probably should have been in there because it was a nice shot. And again, I guess there's an argument of, well, practically it doesn't serve an important narrative purpose other than to look cool. But I'm for, some shots just looking cool to look cool. So.
Okay. Okay, so for my number 6 pick, I would put the extended opening scene to Goldeneye, the first James Bond movie in that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically in this deleted scene, we see an extended scene to James Bond breaking into the, security area in the Soviet Union-controlled dam, and it kind of shows how he actually got past the guards, and it's kind of a cool shot. We kind of see his, eyes and silhouette, and also it explains why the gate's opening. And I think it was for pacing reasons why they cut it, but I wish they would have kept this in because not only was it kind of cool, it had a bit more mystery to it, but also it made more sense. If you watch the movie with that deleted scene gone, it's like, why is that gate opening by itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that definitely, especially of like the ones that are on this list to me, there's a clear argument for, yeah, this really should have been in there because it kind of presents a continuity issue that isn't really answered, and that definitely could have added it. In addition, it's just a cool looking shot. The fact that he kind of sneaks behind the character, and the shot with his eyes kind of lit up in with the rest of the body in shadow. That was cool. That was a nice shot, and there are several arguments for it being in there. So.
Yeah, it's a lot better than Die Another Day.
Mm-hmm. Man.
We should talk about that sometime.
What a train
in the
wreck.
future.
Yeah.
All right. So for my number 7 pick my 7th pick would be just about every deleted scene in Batman Forever. Now, there are a lot of deleted scenes in this movie. In general, it was supposed to be kind of a darker and edgier movie. For example, they kind of emphasized more of how badly Two-Face wanted to kill Batman, where it showed him escaping Arkham Asylum, and I guess on his cell wall, it was painted like the Bat must die, and also we see Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson kind of like bonding a bit, showing him how to, kick this bag for martial arts. And finally, there's this one scene where we see like this, animatronic bat, where I guess he has a vision in the Batcave to kind of motivate himself to become Batman again. And I think the general reason why these scenes were cut, besides for pacing reasons, was that Warner Brothers kind of chickened out because, like, oh, Batman Returns, we don't want to be like that because people probably didn't like it because it scared their kids, it was too dark and depressing. And they just wanted to make more of a safe movie that was more marketable. And
Marvel.
That wasn't me, folks. That was I didn't have that in mind, but I see your point.
Yep.
But yeah, I just felt like this would have definitely made the movie better. I think Joel Schumacher in some interviews had a desire to try to get a director's cut of this movie released, and I would like to see a director's cut of this movie. I mean, there are some deleted scenes that I'm happy that they cut. Like, there's a part where Batman runs into, like, this beauty parlor by accident when he's trying to run somewhere, and they joke, like, oh, we need to trim off them ears, for hair and that, which was super cringy and dumb.
That is pretty cringe.
Yeah, but overall, I feel like they should have been kept in to make a better film. I mean, yeah, edgier, but it would have added, more depth to certain characters, and it would have made the movie generally better and not just, oh yeah, this is not as bad as Batman Robin, but
right.
Wait till you'll see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with most of those. The one, if anything, that to me is kind of inconsequential overall is the Robin and Batman training one. I mean, I guess it was nice, but the one in the beginning with Two-Face escaping, and the one of Batman having the vision with the bat that's like oversized and animatronic that, ooh, too spooky for the kiddos. Those are definitely shots that should have stayed in and add a little bit of an edge to the film. I agree, absolutely.
Okay. So for my 8th pick would be the extended London chase scene from the remake of Wolfman from 2010. it's funny we're kind of gradually going through decades, but now it's like jump leap to 2010 and that. So pretty much in the deleted scene in the remake of the Wolfman, basically the Wolfman is running away from the police and the inspector, and he crashes his costume party, and he kind of blends in because everyone else wearing a costume, and no one gets scared of him because they think that, oh, he's just some guy in a nice costume.
Mm-hmm.
And that. And there's this blind woman who is singing, and the Wolfman like goes up to her, and he's like wondering, why is she not afraid of me? And she's like singing really nice. I'm just wondering about this, like, you know, a typical animal would. But then this one guy like, you know, touches him, and then he attacks him, and, you know, kills him, and then he runs off of the party, and then he crashes a puppet show where these kids are being entertained, and then the Wolfman like kills them. He like jumps up and scares the kids.
That was so good.
I have no idea why they cut this scene out, and I feel like this should have been kept in because not only were these cool scenes, but they were probably expensive, and there was a shot of this deleted scene that was shown in the trailer for the movie, and later it's referenced in the movie on this wanted poster of these certain illustrations of the wrongdoings of the Wolfman in London, and we see the whole part of him crashing the costume party. So why not? I mean, that's pretty much why this should have been kept in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. From the shots that I saw of that is a great scene, a couple scenes that should have been kept in. Especially the part with the puppet show guy just being dragged out. I love that. That's so hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I guess there is an argument of that kind of just being, quote, extra. But at the same time, I mean, as Tyler said, you paid for it, put it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it doesn't take away from it. So it adds to it. It's you know, gets you a laugh, and
yeah, dark humor.
Absolutely. Those were great shots, and they should have been in. And I gotta say, like, there's quite a few movies these days where they show something in like a trailer or like a still, promotional still, and then they end up not being there. And I think to myself, like, it ultimately doesn't make or break the movie, but I just think, man, that would have been nice to see in there, you know, because makes you feel like, you know, you're just a little bit shorted.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not like some of the crap in some trailers nowadays where they purposely shoot footage that's just for the trailer and it's not in the movie.
Yeah.
Or the deleted scenes.
Boy.
Amazing Spider-Man 2. And also Dracula Untold.
Yep. Very much.
Not as bad, but also did a, wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, speaking of, that is going to be an interesting transition for my 9th pick, and that is the lizard kills in The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, there was a deleted scene in the movie where, remember that guy played by Irfan Khan? He's like this guy who's been harassing Dr. Kirk Connors, like, you must find this cure for Norman Osborn, and he's on this bridge and the lizard attacks him, and we never hear or see from this character ever again, and that he just vanishes. And I guess there was a deleted scene where I guess he escaped and he followed the lizard to his lair and he was helping like Spider-Man out, and when he has his mask off for some reason.
We're off to see the lizard.
Yeah, and then the lizard like grabs him and then he like kills him, like he ate him. And I heard the reason why they cut this scene out was because of studio people were like, we don't want to make the lizard look too evil. But the problem with this is that you have a semi-important character that just completely vanished from the movie. It's like, okay, so much for that. It's kind of like a lot of the other subplots in the movie, like, oh yeah, I gotta find my killer of my uncle. Oh, I just forgot about it. Let's move on to something else.
Yep. 2 words for this. Studio cuckery. Absolutely. That should have been kept in, and this, oh, well, it's a little too dark. We want people to empathize with them. Forget that nonsense. Get some reality slapped into you.
And what's weird is that you could obviously tell they were going for a darker telling of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is kind of stupid. It kind of contradicts that whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah, dark, but not too dark. Come on now. Yeah, that should have been kept in. The death, I mean, it's a nice little addition to it. And, again, I mean, it presents that continuity error
Definitely.
kind of like the Goldeneye one, and so that really should have been kept in there, no question.
Yeah, I don't think I showed you the deleted scene, but it was not as questionable as that scene where I guess the lizard breaks into the high school with the, through the bathroom, and there's these girls that are like talking, and he shows up to him and does this like weird like tongue action,
Yeah.
and then like goes away, and they
Hey,
scream in
girls,
that.
want to see my lizard?
By the way, I think one of the actresses in that scene is played by Zoe Deitch. She's in that what was that comedy film with Bryan Cranston and James Franco?
Why him?
Yeah, why this movie?
That's what I say in every James Franco movie these days. Why him?
Yeah.
It was so on the nose.
Steven's review on the movie Why Him?
Yes.
On the home video cover. Critics quote.
My job's done. It's in the title. With his bitch please smile. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen The Disaster Artist yet, but I kind of want to get around to watching it sometime.
Yeah, but I'm so torn because, like, I really want to see it because it's about The Room, which is a so bad it's so good situation. But then it's got just someone who I'm tired of seeing and makes me cringe.
Well, it's not as bad as
so.
Well, it's not as bad as like not James Franco, Seth Rogen, who I can't stand.
Well, to me, it's that level. Like, I just... That level of you having with Seth Rogen where you say, well, it's not that bad. It's that bad to me. It's really that bad.
Okay,
So-
we can... let's try to get through that hump, I guess. Okay, so... and I guess people said that scene probably would have been better if he would have made a line by saying, sorry about this, or pardon me, and that would have scared them because it, talked.
Right.
That wouldn't funny than just like, oh, I'm licking my tongue kind of deal. Like it was the villain from like The Mask or whatever.
Yep.
Alright, so for my 10th pick, and my probably most controversial pick, is the theater shootout scene in Gangster Squad. Now, you probably saw this in the first trailer that was released and eventually was taken down. There's a big shootout scene in the movie where I guess the Gangster Squad and the villain's henchman have a shootout scene in this movie theater, and it looked like it was going to be like a big action scene, a big highlight of the movie. Mm-hmm. And then, sadly, the Aurora movie theater shooting happened, so Warner Brothers had to reshoot the scene and kind of remove it and take the trailer down.
Reshoot, get it?
And I was... people are going to hate us already. And the thing is that I was kind of disappointed that they did not include this in like the special features or an uncut version of the movie. And I felt like this should have been kept in because you're just letting that guy win because, you're letting that, him terrorizing people to actually affect your lives. Mm-hmm. And also, there have been other movies that didn't, kind of cave into pressure because there was that Bourne Legacy movie with, Jeremy Renner and Rachel Weisz. Mm-hmm. That came out maybe weeks after The Dark Knight Rises did.
Yep.
And there was a scene in that movie where a guy like shot up his workplace and Universal didn't cut that scene out of the movie. Mm-hmm. In addition, even going further back, remember the movie Fight Club where Edward Norton's character threatens his boss like he's going to go postal and shoot up his workplace? That movie came out around the time of the Columbine shooting. And 20th Century Fox, didn't cut that scene out.
Yeah. To be fair, I haven't seen Gangster Squad, so I'm not, too much of an expert on what it would have added to the film. But I am all for it being in there. Like that's an example where there was like a whole violent act that should have been in there that seemed like at least an important beat in the story. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it changed the whole tide of something, I don't know. But I guess I can see the argument of them saying, yeah, that's a little bit on the nose because it's a theater shooting right after a theater shooting. But at the same time, forget this PC nonsense. Just release it. If people are too butthurt, fine, then you can not be an adult somewhere else and have the adults go see it. But because it's rated R in the first place, really? Mm-hmm. Are you going to be dragging, your kids who are 7 into it? Not if you're a good parent. But
Yeah, actually, I remember when I saw Watchmen in theaters, which was the first R-rated movie I saw in theaters.
same.
I think I might have saw a woman bring her kid to the movie, or some R-rated movie, or some other movie. I saw like a cradle come in. Like, if you can afford a movie ticket, you should be able to afford a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason why, you can't really find way around this.
At the same time, like in that particular circumstance, I would feel if it was like a toddler or up, definitely keep the kid home. But another part of me, even in the first place, you keep the baby home just because it's a baby and it's going to cry. But the other part of me is like, you know what? If it's young enough that it's like doesn't even have its eyes open or understand any words or anything, something almost makes me think, you know what? If this were like at their house and they were watching a rated R movie and there was like a lot of blood and guts on screen, but they have the volume down and something like that, the kid's not gonna, just, oh, I'm 17 and I have to start shooting and stabbing people. This idiotic logic of some people trying to say, well, violent video games and movies are turning our kids. No, just forget it. That's garbage. But at the same time, like developing kids, yeah, I think there's an argument that you should keep them out from that situation. So.
Yeah, like try to figure out when would be a good time to do it, because you can't shelter and coddle them forever.
Seriously.
I mean, if you think about it, when was the last like animated movie by Disney that actually had a scary scene in it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when I was a kid, I remember growing up watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I was kind of scared of the movie because the evil queen and some of the stuff in the film, but I was actually kind of drawn to it because I'm like, oh, I like being scared. It's kind of a thrill and sort of thing.
Same, yeah.
And yeah, but the problem is when you take all these like scary stuff, it's like, oh, your kid, kind of becomes a little wimpy.
Shelter, shelter, shelter. What was it? There was, I was hearing, like, even recently, just as another example of how this babying actually does harm to people. There are, in a uncomfortable number of cases, apparently, of, millennial kids going, or roughly millennial area kids going in for job interviews. And just from the instant they walk in the door, the employer says, get the hell out, because they either have in the lobby or with them or on their phone their parents, because they need support throughout, the process. So this babying, albeit with the film case, it's not to that degree of babying, but clearly this babying is having a bad effect on people. And at a certain point, you need to just say, look, they got to be an adult, hit the bricks. Like, this is where childhood ends, get over it. And, you don't want to throw kids into that too early, but you can't baby them forever. You just can't.
Yeah, it's like what I love about Batman the Animated Series. Like, it was an animated show, and, it's for all ages if you think about it, but it never talked down to me. It didn't, over like sugarcoat stuff, but it didn't go too far. It was kind of like, okay, this is like mature, and I feel like I'm being treated like an adult and like I'm sophisticated.
Sure.
I mean, it's funny how Batman Forever came out around the time that Mask of the Phantasm did. And it's funny how the animated Batman movie was more adult and mature, and the live action big budget Batman film was more for kids and it was more cartoony.
True. Very true.
Yeah, it just goes to show who has a far better understanding of the source material.
Absolutely.
Yep. I know we got really off topic. Like,
okay.
really, really, really off topic.
People who listen to these, I'm sure they know that's part of the course at this point.
I'll probably put some, like, text in that, like, fast forward to this part because we just got really off topic. Okay, so those are my 10 deleted scenes I really wish would have been kept in a movie and not cut. And what did you think of them, Steven?
I overall think they're pretty good suggestions. There are a couple to me that I don't feel too strongly either way, and there are plenty of examples like, with films with entirely different cuts that could obviously be on this list too. But again, saying we're going to leave those out, that's a good way of being clear. Only the ones on the cutting room floor, and there are plenty other examples that could be added to that. But yeah, this was a pretty good list, and I honestly don't think about this way too often. I mean, once in a while I think of something like, for example, Alien Covenant. There was this whole scene that was cut about what happened to the engineers since Prometheus, and they just didn't have that in there. Just like, yeah, forget that. And also what happened to Shaw in that situation, and things like that. You should have put that in. Come on. But yeah, I don't think about it a lot, but this is a good list. So.
All right, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of, well, I don't know what to qualify it as, but I hope you enjoyed this episode on End Credit Reviews with, this is Tyler from End Credit Reviews.
And Steven from Steven Lawson Studios.
Yes, we hope you enjoyed this episode on End Credit Reviews, this video at least. And I really hope to make a very similar kind of video where it's going to be an actual top 10 that Steven's going to be far more familiar with, and it's going to be about my top 10 favorite giant monster movies. Of course, hyping up the new Pacific Rim movie.
Absolutely.
And we hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.